Disclaimer: I do not own the haiku characters that are to be used in this story. Photos or covers were picked from Google. Credits to the owner.
How are you feeling? TsukiHina asked softly as he caressed Hinata's cheek. Tired, Hinata replied, his voice barely above a whisper. He leaned into TsukiHina's touch, his exhaustion evident. He had just returned from a series of grueling tests since waking up. Kei, I want to talk. What is it? Hinata shifted, sitting up properly on the bed. He took a deep breath before speaking. I want to talk about us. TsukiHina paused, his hand withdrawing from Hinata's cheek. What about us? Hinata fidgeted nervously, his voice trembling. I've thought about it, and I want to end this. TsukiHina's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't expected this, especially not after Hinata regained consciousness. I've given it a lot of thought. I think it's best for both of us. We should file for divorce and end our soulmate bond. But, Hinata forced a small smile, looking at TsukiHina. I'm letting you go now, Kei. We've suffered enough in this relationship. I'm so tired of fighting for it, for us. But, Shōyō, you don't have to fulfill your promise from when we were young, Kei. That was just my wishful thinking, Hinata said gently. But Shōyō, TsukiHina grasped Hinata's hand tightly. Let me try to fix it this time. Let me be the one to make it work for us. Please, just give me a chance. I haven't even tried yet. Hinata chuckled bitterly, tears welling in his eyes. I know, but what you saw that day was purely a misunderstanding. She kissed me, Shōyō. She caught me off guard, and that's why I couldn't push her away. Don't you get it? Hinata loosened TsukiHina's grip, wiping away his tears. I won't get better, Kei. My insecurities will always eat away at me. And you'll always feel the need to explain yourself. Even if what happened was a misunderstanding, look at where we are now. Hinata glanced at TsukiHina again, his smile tinged with sadness. We'll just keep hurting each other, Kei. And I'm tired of being hurt. Maybe we aren't meant to be soulmates after all. Perhaps if I hadn't wished for it back then, destiny wouldn't have played this cruel trick on us. TsukiHina sat in silence, his sobs breaking the stillness. He wanted to fight for their relationship, to hold on to whatever hope was left. But, I'm so tired, Kei. Hinata cupped TsukiHina's face, gently wiping away his tears. I'm tired of living in dread, of constantly battling the thought that you'll tire of me, replace me, that you'll never truly love me. He smiled faintly. I love you, not as I loved you. You love me like a friend, Kei. Not romantically. No, don't confuse yourself now. That's the truth. If you really loved me, you would have never forgotten your promise, Hinata said softly. Kei, I'm your soulmate, Shōyō, TsukiHina sobbed. You hated it. From the day you found out, you despised me for it. I'm sorry, he choked out, bowing his head and covering his face as he cried. Kei, Hinata shook his head, letting out a deep sigh. What are you sorry for? For pushing me to my death. After all, isn't that what you wanted, Kei? TsukiHina froze, horrified by Hinata's words. His eyes widened as he looked at him, only to feel his breath catch in his throat. Hinata was bleeding, his smile eerily calm as crimson stained the bed. I hope you're happy now, Kei. TsukiHina Kei, wake up. TsukiHina Kei, wake up. Kei gasped for air as he jolted awake, his chest heaving. Relax, it was just a nightmare. I'm here, Shōyō said softly, taking Kei's hand and placing it over his chest. Can you feel it? Kei nodded shakily, his palm pressed against Shōyō's heartbeat. It's still beating. I'm alive, Kei. Now, breathe in slowly. Kei's sobs broke through as he whispered, I'm sorry, Shō. Please forgive me. Shish, it's okay. I already forgave you, remember? I'm still right here, babe. Now breathe with me. Inhale through your nose, then exhale through your mouth. Inhale. Kei obeyed, taking a shaky breath. Exhale. He let it out in a slow, trembling release. They repeated the process until Kei's breathing steadied. Kei wrapped his arms around Shōyō tightly, clinging to him as though he might disappear. Are you feeling better now? Shōyō asked gently. Kei simply nodded in response, burying his face in Shōyō's shoulder. Shōyō glanced at the clock on the bedside table. It's just past midnight, he murmured, brushing his fingers through Kei's hair. He adjusted himself into a more comfortable position and whispered, Kei. Kei's voice was muffled against him. Do you want to tell me what your nightmare was about? Shōyō asked softly. Kei froze, his body tensing. Instead of answering, he deflected, why do you want to know? Shōyō tilted his head, a small, knowing smile on his lips. You were sleep-talking. Kei's stomach dropped. Panic flickered across his face as he pulled back slightly to look at Shōyō. What did I say? He asked nervously. Not much. Just my name, and that I was dying. Kei's breath hitched as the vivid memory of his nightmare flooded back. Tears welled in his eyes as he buried his face in the crook of Shōyō's neck, his body trembling with fresh sobs. Shōyō tightened his embrace, holding Kei close. He could feel his distress through their bond, an ache that pierced his own heart. Hey, Shōyō whispered gently. It's okay if you're not ready to share it with me. I'll wait. Kei inhaled deeply, his shoulders shaking as he tried to steady himself. It had been a month since Shōyō had woken up from the coma. A month since they'd had that raw, painful conversation about their relationship, and somehow convinced Shōyō's parents that they could make it work. Finally, Kei whispered, it was about the day you woke up, when we had that talk. Shōyō hummed softly, his hand running soothingly up and down Kei's back. His own mind drifted, recalling the weight of that day and the conversation that had changed everything. He had just returned from his CT scan. Having woken up from a coma and undergone numerous tests throughout the day, he was utterly exhausted by the time he got back to his room. TsukiHina was already there, waiting for him. Once Hinata settled into his bed, TsukiHina reached out and gently touched his cheek. How are you feeling? TsukiHina asked softly, his fingers brushing against Hinata's skin. Tired, Hinata murmured. I want to go home. We can go home after Dr. Shirabu gives us the go-ahead, okay? We just need to make sure there aren't any complications. TsukiHina sat down beside the bed and picked up an apple. Would you like an apple or an orange? Peel me an orange, please. Okay. TsukiHina grabbed an orange and began peeling it, the fresh, tangy scent of citrus filling the room. Kei, can we talk about us? TsukiHina froze mid-task, his fingers tightening on the orange peel. Hinata couldn't see his face, but through their bond, he felt the surge of dread that shot through Kei. Kei, if you've decided to end our bond, it's fine. I understand. I've hurt you too much, so I won't blame you if you want to end it now. Hinata blinked, caught off guard by TsukiHina's words. Kei, he leaned forward, cupping TsukiHina's face with both hands and tilting it up until their eyes met. If you're fine with it, why are you crying? TsukiHina's voice broke as tears spilled down his cheeks. I'm not ending it, TsukiHina Kei. I just want to talk, Hinata said firmly. We've been running away from the truth about us being soulmates. And in doing so, we've forgotten how important proper communication is. That's why we keep getting hurt. I'm sorry, TsukiHina choked out. I'm sorry I forgot our promise. I'm sorry for hurting you. God, I'm the worst soulmate, he cried, the guilt overwhelming him. Hinata reached up to wipe away TsukiHina's tears away and said with a faint smile, yeah, you are the worst, forgetting our promise and all. Tears welled up in Hinata's eyes as he continued. We had such a wonderful friendship when we were kids, Kei. But everything changed in middle school when you met Tadashi. That's when we started to drift apart. Even so, I developed a crush on you back then. Even though we only saw each other during family gatherings, I fell for you. TsukiHina squeezed Hinata's hand gently, his gaze never leaving his. So, when our families decided to arrange our marriage, I thought, oh. Finally, I can rebuild our friendship. At the time, I just wanted to fix things between us. But you kept pushing me away, hurting me with your words and actions, showing me how much you hated being with me. Hinata said, exhaling deeply before continuing. Back then, I tried to bury my feelings for you. But fate had other plans. When I turned 16, my soulmate mark appeared, a crescent moon with a firefly. It gave me hope. I was going to tell you, but you saw us, didn't you? TsukiHina interrupted softly. Hinata nodded. The memory was still vivid. I saw how close you were with Tadashi. It hurt more than anything I'd ever felt. I never imagined I'd have to watch my soulmate fall in love with someone else. I finally understood why you treated me with such disdain after our marriage. TsukiHina remained silent, guilt clawing at his chest. But I didn't give up. I still had the soulmate card to play. Hinata chuckled bitterly. I waited for you to turn 16. I thought things might change, but they didn't. Instead, they got worse. I told myself it was fine. I thought, it's okay to stay in this loveless marriage. It's only for 3 years. I decided I'd love you in secret. TsukiHina's heart shattered at Hinata's words. Back then, during our 3rd year, I told you, I tried to endure it. I even researched soulmate bonds, the pros and cons. I saw how happy you were, and all I wanted was for you to stay that way. So I chose to love you silently. I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't. Then, one day, when you texted me saying you wouldn't come home, that's when one of our strings snapped. It was unbearable. So you were at the hospital that whole night? TsukiHina asked, his voice trembling. Yes, Hinata whispered. And when I got home at 4 a.m., you were so angry. You didn't know how much I wanted to punch you that day. Why didn't you punch me? TsukiHina asked, trying to lighten the mood. You're too handsome to punch in the face, Hinata mumbled. TsukiHina heard him clearly and groaned. Shōyō. What? I was tired. And who's the one who said they weren't coming home, only to be there when I got back? Hinata sighed. Anyway, why did you come home? I felt like something was wrong. I didn't know one of the strings had snapped, but I remember my mark stinging. He hesitated. Now that I think about it, you told me you were with Kageyama. Well, it wasn't a complete lie. He was with me. He's the one who took me to the hospital when I passed out from the pain. Wait, so he's known about us since then? Not exactly. He figured it out later. He didn't know we were married until that incident. Oh, and he put a GPS tracker on me. He what? Don't get mad at Tobio. That tracker helped me survive the worst pain you caused, okay? TsukiHina fell silent, guilt and sadness weighing heavily on him. Anyway, despite everything, I kept loving you. I thought I'd survive, but I didn't. And now, here we are. I'm sorry, Shōyō, TsukiHina said, his voice cracking. I'm sorry you had to endure all that pain alone. I'm sorry for pushing you away and ruining our friendship. If only we'd had a proper conversation, maybe things wouldn't have spiraled out of control. Hinata chuckled softly. I want to apologize too. I forgot how hard it is for you to express yourself. I should have told you how I felt back then. After their apologies, they sat together in a comforting silence, basking in each other's presence. When I was in a coma, I dreamt about our childhood, those little moments we'd forgotten. One memory stood out, the day we made our promise. The promise that we'd be soulmates. Hinata nodded. I'd forgotten it until that dream. In it, when we made our promise, a red string appeared on our ring fingers, connecting us. That's when I realized we were destined for each other all along. He paused. In my dream, I almost cut the string. But then, the younger you appeared and told me to talk to you first. He hugged TsukiHina tightly. So here I am. TsukiHina-K, would you still like to try and make this work? TsukiHina smiled, a genuine one this time. Would you let me? Hinata smiled back, his heart full. I'll always let you. In my dream, you decided you'd had enough and ended everything between us. I tried to persuade you to stay, but, I guess, in my dream, you couldn't take it anymore. I kept apologizing, but, panic suddenly surged through K as the last part of his dream came rushing back to him. Hey, calm down, Shōyō murmured, wrapping his arms tightly around K. You said, what would you feel sorry for? You pushed me to my death, didn't you, K? And when I looked at you, you were bleeding to death. It felt so real. Shōyō tightened his embrace, resting his chin on Kei's shoulder. Shish, it was just a nightmare. It wasn't real, okay. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere, well, not anywhere you can't follow. Kei exhaled shakily, grounding himself in the warmth of Shōyō's presence. Why don't you try scheduling a therapy session with my psychiatrist? Maybe they can help with the nightmares. Okay, I'll try that, Kei said after a moment of hesitation. Good, I'll contact them later and make an appointment. Would you like to have the same schedule as mine? Sure, Shōyō smiled softly, brushing Kei's hair back. Okay, now, let's get back to sleep, it's still early. Kei leaned in and kissed Shōyō gently on the lips. Good night, I love you, Shōyō smiled warmly. Good night. It had been months since Kei and Shōyō returned to their normal lives. Shōyō continued his training with MSBY in Osaka, while Kei trained in Sendai. On weekends, they met up and enjoyed quiet, meaningful dates together. They also made time to reconnect with Kageyama, Yachi, and Yamaguchi. The first time Shōyō joined one of these meetups, Yachi bombarded him with questions. Despite his best efforts to answer, Kei had to step in, earning a light scolding from Yachi. Still, everything worked out in the end. One bright, clear morning in Sendai, Shōyō and Kei had just finished their usual weekend run. Shōyō sat on a bench, waiting for Kei to return from their favorite coffee shop. Oh, it's gold. A stranger's voice caught Shōyō's attention as they passed by. Shōyō was momentarily confused until he noticed where the stranger was looking. You know what I mean. Here, the young woman said, handing over a red rose with a smile. A red rose for a handsome young man like you. Shōyō accepted the rose with a smile. Thank you. Have a great day. Shōyō waved as the stranger walked away and disappeared into the crowd. Just then, Kei approached, holding 2 cups in his hands. His eyes landed on the rose immediately. Who gave you that flower? A young lady, Shōyō replied, looking at the rose. It's beautiful. Yeah, whatever. Here's your tea, Kei mumbled, handing over a cup before starting to walk away. Shōyō smiled knowingly. He understood what the stranger meant by gold. They were referring to the soulmate string. It was the first time Shōyō had met someone who could see it. Why would they give you a red rose? Kei muttered under his breath. Shōyō heard Kei's quiet grumble and noticed the slight pout forming on his lips. He teased, Now, Mr. TsukiHina, are you jealous? I'm not. You are, Shōyō said, taking a sip of tea. I'm not. You are. Kei rolled his eyes in mock annoyance, but the faint blush on his cheeks betrayed him. The two fell into a comfortable silence as they strolled through the park. That young lady, I think she could see the soulmate string, Shōyō said softly. Really? You know, it reminded me, your younger self was obsessed with the golden soulmate string. I was. Wait, how do you know that? Shōyō took Kei's left hand, gently caressing his ring finger. Back when I dreamt about your younger self, he mumbled that he wished to have the same golden string as mine with Shō-chan. Kei froze. Wait. He paused as realization dawned on him. You mean, our string is gold? You're saying? Kei stood rooted in place, staring at Shōyō in shock. Their remaining soulmate string wasn't just any ordinary red thread, it was gold. Soulmates typically had 5 red threads connecting them, but in rare cases, those threads turned gold, signifying a deeper destiny. A golden string was unbreakable, even by death, and it bound souls together across lifetimes. Shōyō smiled softly. Yeah, our string is gold. He released Kei's hand and continued walking, only to glance back and see Kei still standing there, dumbfounded. Hey, TsukiHina Kei. Kei snapped out of his daze. What? Shōyō turned around and pulled out a small ring box containing their wedding rings. Will you marry me? Kei's eyes widened in surprise. Shōyō held up the box. Well, what's your answer? Kei walked over, taking one of the rings from the box. He gently held Shōyō's left hand and slid the ring onto his finger. You already know my answer. Besides, we're still married, TsukiHina Shōyō. Shōyō giggled, taking the other ring and sliding it onto Kei's finger. Kei stared at Shōyō with pure adoration. He caressed Shōyō's cheek and leaned in, kissing him tenderly. Shōyō blushed but didn't pull away. It's nice to see such a reaction from you, Kei teased. Shōyō gave him the sweetest smile Kei had ever seen and whispered, I love you, Kei.
Hello guys, this is Eunice. Sun and Moon has finally come to an end. It's been quite a roller coaster ride of emotions, but I'm happy to say it all wrapped up with a satisfying ending. I hope you enjoy it. I've already polished the grammar with ChatGPT's help, so it should be much better now. Anyway, see you in the next story. Bye!